Hello folks, welcome to our Holy Land Tours channel. This is another inspirational impromptu video. I was just going for a walk and decided to record another session from Armenia and to invite you over to Armenia as I'm walking here and getting some fresh air and tell you a little bit about Holy Land Tours, what it's all about, and show you on the screen. I'm going to minimize my screen so you could see the whereabouts of Armenia, Mount Ararat, Holy Noah, his family, and how he got to. And also I'm going to pan up to show you the stars, folks. I hope you could see them. There's basically lots of stars in the sky. It's a clear night, 46 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 8 degrees Celsius above freezing point. So anyway, no, you have to see it, folks. I hope you could see the stars. I'm going to pan up just one more time and pause for a second, and then I'm going to return to my stories, folks. I'm being inspired again today, and today I'm recording on my GoPro camera that has a little handle so I could show you around, and it's a little bit more convenient than holding a phone, basically. So the last time I was ill prepared, this time I'm just slightly better prepared, just a tiny bit more convenient for me to be holding this GoPro camera. About the same thing, but it's just more convenient when you have a little handle. So anyway, and it's smaller, so it's not like my phone. And so folks, another inspirational walk and talk. If you're on the frequency of God, you're not stressed most of the time, and you could share this positive energy of agape love with other people. So we're going to talk about Mount Ararat. We're going to talk about Armenia, the first Christian country that adopted Christianity in 301 Anno Domini, which is about 1,700 years ago. That's right, folks, 1,700 years ago, the first country on the face of the earth to adopt Christianity. That is Armenia. We're going to tell you about the climate. So I mentioned 46 degrees right now, 8 degrees Celsius, 46 Fahrenheit. So, typical fall, winter weather. So occasionally we get snow in Armenia, not today, but occasionally we do. So it's kind of like, and by the way, we're surrounded by mountains, kind of like Rocky Mountains, but all around us. During the summertime, though, the weather is more like Arizona. It's very dry. So it's warmer, but it is, if you go up in the mountains, it's a little bit cooler. So anyway, most importantly, Holy Land Tours. What is it all about? Well, we're building a community of devout Christians. So first of all, this is a channel for anyone. We welcome anyone and everyone who is a Christian, who is a Muslim, who is a follower of any other faith or denomination, who is a spiritual seeker. So if you happen to be reading Hare Krishna mantras every day, we welcome you. If you read the Quran, we welcome you. If you read the Bible, of course, we welcome you as a brother or sister in Christ. So all are welcome. And our community is called Noah's Ark Eco Village. It's based on the famous Findhorn Foundation, or the Findhorn Eco Village in Scotland, that was built by the Caddies. Peter and Eileen Caddy have traveled across England. They're from England in their camper that they call caravan over there. So, and they drove all the way up north until they reached Findhorn Bay, which is the furthest point in Scotland that you can reach. And so they stopped, pitched their tent, just like Holy Noah did, and they started their community called Findhorn Eco Village. And last time, folks, I told you about their wonderful community, and I forgot to mention, the whole point of me mentioning to you their communities. Not that it's just an eco-village, but what's so special about it, and it's remarkable, it's marvelous what they do there, folks. Nothing grows at that latitude at Finnhorn Village or eco-village naturally. So it's a supernatural situation. Since 1962 Anno Domini, they've been growing the crops 3 times, 4 times the normal size. So when they get the cucumbers, zucchinis, tomatoes, you name it, it's several times larger and more prolific. The harvest is much more prolific than what you might expect, but most people don't even expect anything, folks. And so what they do, you might be asking, how is it possible to have a harvest when nothing grows in the sandy soil, and it's not very fertile, and it's sub-zero temperatures during the wintertime, constant winds, gusty winds, gusting at maybe 100 miles an hour occasionally, maybe a little bit less. But the point is, how is it possible? Where do you find the methodology to plant your seeds and have a decent harvest? Well, folks, they pray over the harvest. They talk to the plants inside their little greenhouses. I'm going to bring up on the screen everything I'm talking about so you could see it in high definition. So what they do is they talk to the plants, they pray to the plants, and they're on the frequency of God. So at least they're on a higher frequency than most people. Because most people, folks, they're on the frequency of the news channel. Whenever you watch the news, which I highly recommend that you don't watch the news, you just get the weather channel. Wait until the weather comes up, and then you watch the weather forecast, and then you turn it off, because it's designed to dumb you down and keep you far away from God, or from the creator of the universe, or from the frequency of God. So what is the frequency of God, folks? So let's discuss it all. We're going to talk about the dark energy discovered by the astrophysicists not that long ago. And dark stream, or the dark flow, is the force that is 10 billion light years across, that is pushing our galaxy, Milky Way galaxy, to accelerate and travel at the speed of 600 kilometers per second. Folks, we're traveling at phenomenally fast rate of speed right now. If we were to suddenly stop, as our massive galaxy, which is 150,000 light years across, folks, it takes light that travels at 300,000 kilometers per second, 150,000 years to go across our Milky Way galaxy. It's phenomenal distances, phenomenal speeds, and something is pushing, accelerating our galaxy towards the Andromeda galaxy at the rate of 600 kilometers per second, folks. We're traveling at exceedingly fast. We cannot even imagine how fast we're traveling through space. You might be thinking, well, it's pretty calm, but it's not. So all of that has some kind of a physics behind it, some kind of a logic behind it. Something is, and we're going to collide with the Andromeda galaxy in about approximately, they say, nobody knows for sure, but approximately 4 billion years. The Milky Way galaxy will be absorbed by a much larger Andromeda galaxy in approximately 4.5 billion years, when they will suddenly fuse together and become one. It will be catastrophic. Of course, nothing will survive, folks. It will be just, you have to be in a different plane, when I say plane, in a different dimension before that. Well, hopefully long before that. So this is what Jesus was talking about, folks. I'm jumping into the subject of the kingdom of God. So when Jesus was here, if he was here today, he would be speaking the identical same language I'm talking to you. So it's slightly more scientific than 2,000 years ago, because people back then, they only knew approximately 250 words. That's right, folks. He spoke Aramaic to them. Aramaic is kind of like a vernacular Koine Greek of the Greeks, but it was the Koine version of the simplified version of Hebrew. Aramaic is a descriptive language, and so Jesus masterfully used 250 words to basically project his message, eternal message of life. So that's just a feat in linguistics, folks. Most people today, we know approximately most educated people know anywhere between 10 to 20,000 words. So he spoke 250 words, and with that kind of vocabulary, he was able to circle around on the same subject and speak through parables and deliver a message. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's. That's just quite remarkable expression. It's so simple, so elegant, so just remarkable, folks. That is linguistics at its best. How to use 250 words? Well, that's what Jesus did. And so if he was here with us, he would be speaking the same language that I'm speaking. So God is speaking through me right now, through the, I'm on the frequency of God, so he's speaking through me. He's using my vocal cords to share with you his message, his soul. And so when the galaxies collide in the distant future, when our galaxy, the Milky Way, will collide with the Andromeda galaxy, we have to be living in a different parallel universe, parallel dimension, parallel newer galaxy to survive. So there are innumerable dimensions, folks. This is what angels, an angel is a biblical term of Greek origin, which angelos, it means a messenger. These are simply what the Bible calls ministering spirits. But what that means technically, using a scientific language, these are multi-dimensional higher beings that have subtle matter. They operate on a sort of they deal with different kind of reality. So we live in a three-dimensional world. They live in 64 plus dimensional world. So we cannot even comprehend. We cannot even begin to comprehend, because mathematics, if you know higher mathematics, is able to describe an 11 dimensions using mathematics, but not our logic. So even though it's on paper using mathematical formulas, we cannot understand anything above 3 dimensions. Now, mathematics just recently was able to describe an 11-dimensional universe, which we cannot comprehend. It's not like you go to a grocery store, you pay them with Bitcoin, and that's your biggest achievement, right? Meaning you don't pay cash. You don't pay cash, that's an achievement, folks. That's quite an achievement. So 11 dimensions we cannot comprehend. 64 dimensions that the angels operate in, we cannot comprehend. So Jesus would describe that in order for us to transition from this, and by the way, there are myriads and myriads and myriads of life forms out there, folks. Like last time I told you about this cute little fox named Alfie. And I also forgot to tell you, folks, again, I'm going to circle back and tell you why I told you that story. I mean, it's about kindness. I'm promoting kindness, but it's a life form. And so when you see, and by the way, in this park where I'm walking here, in this park, there are coyotes and foxes, and they're usually very, very shy, very extremely shy. Nobody sees them, but I see them. This is what I kind of failed to communicate last time when I told you right around that corner. I said, in this park, the coyotes come up to me, but not to other people. And in the video, I slurred. I didn't formulate my thoughts very clearly. I said, just like this, I was coming up to this bush over there, and I said, I meant to say is they don't come up to most people, but they do come up to me. They don't fear me, because I'm on the frequency of God. I'm on my path towards reaching God. I'm on this meditative lifestyle, and this is what I failed to communicate to you, folks. So now that I've cleared it up, in this park there are coyotes and foxes. They're very, very shy. Foxes, they don't come up to me very close. Usually it's a mother and her little cubs. And the reason why I could tell is because, I've been watching Alfie the fox. I know what they look like. I know their sort of behavior. And they're very skinny, scrawny, very slim, because there's not enough food for them to survive. So they're not as pampered as Alfie the fox, who comes down they live in a 3-story house. So Alfie comes down the stairs from the 3rd floor whenever he gets hungry, or whenever he smells Mama Victoria's cooking him some favorite dish. His favorite dish is boiled turkey and boiled chicken. And the little salad, he loves cucumbers, folks. That's his another favorite thing. He loves cucumbers, fresh, freshly cut, sliced cucumbers. And so Victoria and Alex, that's their family, husband and wife, who had adopted Alfie the fox when he was just a little cub. And folks, I forgot to tell you the main point of that story. It's not that he's so cute and he's so plump and he's so fluffy and he's so kind. He's very kind, and he began to speak like a human. He developed a human speech pattern, a pattern of a baby, just like a toddler, human toddler, just like, like parrots, the little birds, parrots, that they mimic the human speech. That's half the story, folks. The reason why I even told you about this fox named Alfie is because they saved him. He was about to be killed at this animal breeding farm. It's not just a fox, a couple of, they have like hundreds and hundreds of cages. This is where they breed those foxes, and then they kill them for fur. They make fur coats out of animals like Alfie. And so Alex went there. He saved Alfie, and they named him Alf the Fox after the famous character. There was I believe in the 90s, there was this famous character anyway that looks like him. So they named him Alf the Fox, and he's very kind, he's very cute, he's very fluffy, and he promotes kindness. So Alfie is so popular, folks, that worldwide he has, when you look him up, when the last time I watched him was 99 million views, folks, on his channel. Just recently I watched him, is over 105 million views now. So if you look up at the counter, when you go to the main channel homepage and you look up, you click more, and you'll see the total number of views. And so Alfie the Fox has gotten over 100 million views worldwide. Why, folks? Because he promotes kindness. People are lacking kindness. They need kindness. Kindness is a sister of love. Love is the language of God. It's the frequency of God. That's his frequency that emanates from God, from the core of his being. And so his messenger in this world was Jesus the Christ. The Christ, folks, is not a last name. It's a title. In Greek, it's a biblical term of Greek origin. Everything I'm going to be I'm going to be sharing with you in multiple languages. I'm going to be sharing with you some Greek, Arabic, some French, some Russian, some Sumerian, some Akkadian language, some Aramaic, and a few other languages. Ancient Persian, which is not the same as Farsi today. It's a different language, different structure, different. They used cuneiform writing system in ancient Persia. So it's a completely different world, folks. All it takes is a database of information. This is what I'm sharing with you. So if Jesus was around today, he would be using the same language. So in order to pass through this prison of a cell where we're at, Earth is the lowest planet. So every planet has life on it. The reason why we cannot see angels, or in Greek, angelos, or the messengers, is because they operate in multi-dimensional universe. We cannot see them. We're very primitive. We're kind of like Alfie the Fox, folks. The reason why I brought him up is because he is given to us. The animals are given to us so that we won't get an ego. When we see Alfie the Fox, hopefully we get a smile on our face. Even if you see a puppy, folks, if you see a puppy on the street or a kitten, stop and just pause and just smile. Take your time, a few minutes. It's not going to delay your day or your life that much. God has given you this opportunity to connect with the sea and animal, to realize that it was made for you, as a reminder, folks, that we are also created beings. And unless we get this reminder, we get this high egos. Like we forget, we think we have email, or we can trade Bitcoin, and suddenly we have this gigantic ego. Today we made $3,000. But what if you lost $442 million, folks? Bitcoin went down from $127,000 per Bitcoin to $67,000. What do you do when you lose $443 million? Well, you better have some self-control so you don't hang yourself. Or you better have a strategy so you know what you're going to do. So today you lost $443 million because it went down to 67,000 from 127. But hopefully in a few months it will get up to $1.2 billion. You see, you have to have a strategy, folks. You can't just wing it. Winging it ain't going to cut it, folks. So back to the story of Jesus and the frequency of God. So his story translated into plain English is the salvation story, that, you know, we must be seeking the kingdom of God and the rest will be added onto us. Absolutely true, folks. I agree with it 100%. So what he meant by that is we must be focusing on higher frequency items. So lower frequency would be money, sex, and food. Higher frequency items would be prayer, meditation, and fasting. So what I shared with you in the last podcast, if you will, impromptu podcast that I recorded just in the same park at night while I was walking, I shared with you that every morning when you wake up, you have to pull out your, if you want to live to be 150, a happy, carefree life on the frequency of God, full of blissful aura and blissful positive energy around you and positive people. You pull out your water that you've been marinating in a glass jar, never plastic. Plastic causes cancer. So glass jar covered with saran, some kind of a thin plastic wrap, one of those saran wraps. And inside that jar, you have to have 3 or 4 slices of lemon. Why? Because lemon acts as an antiseptic. It kills bacteria. Plus, you have to keep the water in the refrigerator to keep the bacteria from growing. But you pull it out, pour it in your glass of water, you add some iodine, just one tiny droplet of iodine, and then you let it warm up a little bit within 20 minutes, and then you drink it while you say your prayers, and you meditate over water, over your glass of water. Because we're 80% water, this water that you'll be drinking, you'll become one with it. And if you have positive thoughts, you'll be drinking, you'll be perpetuating the frequency of God within your body, within your physical body. So Jesus's message, Christos, is a title which means the anointed one. In ancient times, if somebody had an important message or an important spiritual title, he would be anointed with olive oil. Olive oil in the Middle East, in that part of the world, was of high value. Today, we have no idea how precious it is. You just go to a grocery store, you buy it. It's usually junk. You have to get organic olive oil from certain groves, certain places to get quality olive oil from Greece, preferably. But anyway, if you're growing it yourself, that's a different story. So olive oil was used to anoint people for special projects, for monumental tasks. So Jesus the Christ, Christos in Greek, it means anointed for a special purpose. Jesus is not his real name. His real name was Yeshua, Hamashiach. That's how you pronounce it in Aramaic. So if we were to be transported, we went back in time 2,000 years, you would hear his followers call them Yeshua Hamashiach, with a ch sound. You have to add a little bit of a throaty little ch. Hamashiach. That's Aramaic. That's what it sounds like, folks. This Aramaic is spoken by only a few communities surviving today. The Assyrians. There are several small communities in Armenia and in Georgia. Small meaning there are several hundred families that have survived, and they speak this very vernacular that Jesus spoke 2,000 years ago. But anyway, so Jesus was talking about transitioning, folks, elevating your mind, bringing it from the gutter of watching the news into the light, the uncreated light, the brightest light that emanates from God, folks. It's not a natural light like from the sun, from our star in our solar system. No. This neotic light, this uncreated light, is the brightest light that we cannot see with our physical eyes. That's the point, folks. We cannot see it, but it's all around us. And this is the point. Once we've switched from the frequency of watching the stupid news, meaning the TV, into the frequency of God by meditating, the story I'm telling you about drinking the water in the morning, every single morning, like that, as a routine. You wake up in the morning, you don't do anything. You don't turn on your computer, your phone, your gadgets, your iPhones, the iPads, your anything. You just get up and you don't say hello to anyone. You don't walk your dog. You go to your prayer room, your prayer closet, your prayer rug, your prayer spot. even if it's in the kitchen with dimmed lights, so that the lights won't be bothering you. It cannot be bright. You have to dim the lights. You just have to be able to barely see where you're going, but dim lights, you pour your glass of water, you get into the meditative state every morning before the sun comes up. And then you begin to meditate. You begin to connect to the frequency of God. And once you do that enough times, folks, once you actually connect to God, to the real frequency of God, you would not want to get off of it. You would want to stay on it perpetually, forever. Do you understand what I'm sharing with you, folks? This conversation with me, it's an impromptu recording. I'm slightly better prepared because I brought my GoPro, so it's a little bit easier for me to hold it. But the point is, this is a remarkable time that with using this technology, I'm sharing with you the Spirit of God, who is speaking through me to you right now. This is not from me. This is not an accident. There are no accidents. Everything is mathematical. If you knew a little bit about mathematics, look at this, folks.
4,123 steps. Heart rate 112 beats per minute.
I mentioned it last time. Highly recommend. This is a Samsung Galaxy Classic watch that I highly recommend that you get. If you have it, you go for walks. It does so many calculations besides making sure that you walk enough every day. By default, it's set to 6,000 steps, but I go above it, 12,000 steps, 21,000 steps. So about 5 to 8 miles. That's what I do. But 3 miles is the default. 6,000 steps is roughly about 3 miles a day. But it also keeps track of your sleep patterns. It gives you reminders. If you snore, it will record your snoring, because many people don't know whether they have sleep apnea or not. And if they have sleep apnea, if they snore too much. Look at this beautiful, beautiful stars, folks, up above. I'm going to pan up so you could see the stars. Hopefully you see the stars, folks. But anyway, back to the story. So get the watch. Samsung spent $6.5 billion and 3 years of research and development, R&D, to develop this watch. It's highly sophisticated. In the back of it is a green laser-like LED. That's what gives it the surgical level. The instrumentation is just like you getting an EKG at a hospital. Same accuracy, extremely accurate. $6.5 billion was spent on R&D of this watch. So anyways, very, very accurate. And it also displays your text messages, all your email accounts, especially if you have 40 email accounts like I do. You see all of them when they come up, and they just display it on your watch. So you don't even have to pull out your phone and look at it. And you can also talk through your watch as you be driving or walking. You don't have to reach down or pull out your phone. You could have a standalone number, or you could have the same number as your phone, or you could just be Wi-Fi'd into your cell phone. And that way you could be answering your phone from your watch on your wrist. Very convenient. My productivity went up by 40% after I got it 5 years ago. And so highly recommend if you're into efficiency, productivity. So back to my story, folks. Before this interruption, I was talking about the frequency of God. So the Spirit of God is speaking through me using this GoPro camera. I'm just going for a walk, enjoying my walk, getting some exercise, fresh air, and I'm recording this message. Now I'm going to add some images of Armenia, so you could see Mount Ararat. You could see the village of Ararat. This is where Noah, when he descended Mount Ararat, he went down the mountain. He needed a river, obviously, a source of life, water. And the river is called Ararat River. Now, in the ancient times, the Greeks called it the Araxes River. Also, the Sumerians called it the Araxes River. So it's a famous river, folks, because it flows right by Mount Ararat. This is where Noah pitched his tent. And tradition has it, it happened by the Araxes River, by the village of Ararat, and that's where it's in the Ararat Valley. And so Mount Ararat last erupted on July the 2nd of 1840 Anno Domini. was a 9.5 on a Richter scale, gigantic, terrible volcanic eruption that killed 10,000 people as far away as Tiflis. Tiflis is what today is called Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia. So approximately 450, 500 kilometers away from Mount Ararat. How did the boulders get there? Well, because it was a catastrophic volcanic eruption that basically simultaneously occurred with the earthquake, a horrible earthquake that killed everyone in the Aqoṛi village. Aqoṛi village was at 4,000 meter elevation on the slopes of Mount Ararat, and it caused more than half of the mountain to collapse and create this gorge. It's called the Aqoṛi Gorge. A gorge is basically a hole inside a mountain. Prior to this earthquake, Mount Ararat was about 6,000 meters tall. Now it's 5,137 meters tall. Somebody measured it incorrectly about 50 years ago. They said it was 5,165, but it's actually, with more accurate measurements, it's 5,137. Perhaps maybe it shrunk further. Nobody knows. But anyway, the latest statistic is 5,137 meters tall. Is how tall Mount Ararat is as of today. So it shrunk from 6,000 meters before 1840 Anno Domini earthquake to a 5,137 level, which is, by the way, where it stands today. Lost more than half of its mass. Something like 15 trillion metric tons was destroyed in that violent volcanic eruption, and it basically took down with it all everything, all the villages, you see there were a number of villages around Mount Ararat. It took them all out. It took them all out with boulders flying at almost supersonic speed, from the mountain. And so that was a reminder that it's a very new mountain. It's only, folks, it's very new. Ararat is only 1.2 billion years old, whereas Mount Everest is 65 billion years old. So it's a tremendous difference in age between those two mountains, and they're made from different materials. Mount Ararat is made of soft lava, which comes from, when you look at the pictures from space, you can see Mount Ararat has these striations that kind of sort of basically molten lava that's solidified on the surface after the ejection from the earth, folks. I guess the lava got ejected and then solidified, and it kind of flowed down the slopes. Now, Mount Everest, or Jomolungma, what they call it, is 8,000, above 8,000, 23,000 feet, folks. 8,000 meters tall. It's not made of lava, folks. It's made out of tectonic plates, made out of continents, folks. 65 million years ago, when Eurasia was moving towards India, what we know today as the subcontinent of India, when it used to be one plate. Then it just crumbled, and it brought up from the bottom of the ocean, Turkish Ocean, the portion of the bottom of the ocean is at the very top of Mount Everest, long story short. So anyway, 65 million years old, and the one that was at the bottom of the ocean is 600 million years old, folks. So everything that you see on top of Mount Everest and K2 and all the Himalayan mountains, they're made out of a different material than Mount Ararat. Mount Ararat is soft, and it's very new, only 1.2 million years old, and Mount Everest, or Jomolungma, is very, very much older, 65 million years old, and the top of Mount Everest is 600 million years old, because that's the bottom of an ancient ocean that was pushed up. The crust of the bottom was pushed up to 8,000, elevation of 8,500 meters, 23,000 feet. So that's the story. That's why they look different. That's why it never erupts. So in other words, the Himalayas, they never erupt. There are no, the Everest is not going to erupt into a volcanic eruption, whereas Mount Ararat could. That's the difference. And back to the story of Jesus. So back to the story of Jesus, folks. So I'm recording this impromptu message to clarify some of the things that are given to me by an inspiration from the Spirit of God. And if Jesus was here, he would clarify why we needed to be on a higher frequency. Is because our life here on this planet is almost like a horrendous test. Life is very tough, it's not fair, full of pain, full of pain. Let's just stop there. The rest you know. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you're focused on that higher frequency of God and you're walking in his spirit, you connected to him. You're not thinking about the news. You know, those people who barely read, well, I mean, some of them read it very well from the teleprompter, and they read the news, the negative news, to program you negatively so that you'll be all scared and you'll be all in one little under the bed. You'd be hiding under the bed with 7.5 billion people on this planet being scared of this or scared of that or scared of everything. That's how news get the ratings. That's why everybody likes to watch negative news, to be scared and afraid and super negative. So, but you have to do the opposite. You have to be counterintuitive and never watch the news other than the weather forecast. Okay? And that way you'll be on the frequency of God, more so than on a frequency of the newscaster who's paid to read you the garbage news. So Jesus was saying, unless we become like these little children, we shall by no means be able to enter the kingdom of God. And he said it because his disciples, the 12 disciples who were around him, were keeping the children at bay, meaning they forbade to come to Jesus, thinking they were distracting him. They were, children would be perhaps being too playful, too loud, too distracting because the adults wanted to listen. But Jesus said, forbid them not, allow them to come to me, because for such is the kingdom of heaven, folks. So what is it about the faith of a child, folks? What is it? It's the innocence. It's the simplicity. And children are on the frequency of God, more so than the adults. And so our goal is to go back to that time when we were children and get on the frequency of God. And then you'll be able to walk on water. That's the Father's secret that he told us. If you can get back to your childhood years, get on the frequency of God, you'll be able to walk on water, heal the sick, cast out demons, and raise the dead. That's right. You'll be able to raise people who have died because Jesus said so. I'm going to pull up on the screen so you could see it. So it's not some joke. He said so, that I'll go to my Father, I'll send you a comforter, and so you shall be able to do the same things I've done, even greater things. But what could be greater than raising people from the dead, folks? Well, that's the teleportation. This is what I'm going to pull up again on the screen so you could see it. There are 5 incidents of physical teleportation in the Bible. The most famous one of them is found in the book of Acts, folks. So teleportation, once you hang out with us, with these sort of people on the frequency of God, you'll see people elevating from the ground, folks. And I will never suggest that you elevate. Once you learn how to fly, you don't fly off the ground for more than 5 or 10 inches. Maybe 10 to 20 centimeters off the ground. Why? Because it's not safe. The slightest distraction, you go down. So if it's only 5 centimeters, you're not going to hurt yourself. But if it's, if you're going to be flying, 5-10 meters above ground, and you lose concentration and you go down suddenly, like a rock, you can hurt yourself in a really bad way. So when you begin to levitate, this is the part that Jesus told you about. This is what's being done in India every single day, folks. And I'm not sure how in the West people don't get it, because they're being used like slaves through this banking system, interest-based banking system that does not exist outside of the Western world, folks. There are interest-free loans that are given if you wanted to buy a car or a house in other countries, folks. Like under Islam, it's forbidden to charge interest under the penalty of death, because that's essentially servitude. That's you're enslaving another human being. And so in the West, people are worried about mortgages and money, whereas in other countries, under the Sharia law, they have riba-free loans or interest-free loans, folks. Did you know that? Well, so in India, folks, people are not concerned about these Western stupid things. So they fly in the air. You can see many videos of that on YouTube, folks. At quite high rate of speed. And I would never ever recommend this, folks, to you. Never. Once you learn how to and by the way, we're going to teach you that. It's called the agape meditation from these scenes. So Jesus went through Armenia to Tibet and India. This is where he was taught these things, and then he taught his disciples, and it got passed on to the Essenes. And the Essenes is the last religious group of people that held to these beliefs and to these practices, to these methodologies. I'm going to teach you this methodology. So what you do is in very simplistic terms, it's a meditative practice that you could do every day. Look at it, folks. I'm going to pan up to show you the beautiful stars and planets. I hope you could see it. It's absolutely just gorgeous. Wow, see, how often do we look up, folks? Not very often, I would say. And we should be looking up very often. So this practice, folks, the agape meditation is, what you do is, if you live in a city, you go to a city park. As far away from people as you can. So there's no people or animals around you. You turn off your phones, you turn everything off. No people, nothing, folks. The reason why I recorded it, so you can see it from my vantage point, so you can see it exactly as I'm seeing it. So I recorded it with a GoPro camera attached to my forehead. And so that's why you're seeing from that angle. But what you do is you put your left hand on a tree nearby, and then you begin to meditate. And then with your right hand, and then you focus on the frequency of the tree. It's a life form. It cannot send you a message in a visible format through texting or SMS or an email, but it is a life form, and therefore you should be able to get on this frequency, and you will with enough practice. And so with your right hand, you kind of maneuver the air around you. Once you get on that frequency, you will see as a confirmation that you've arrived, that you can create some wind gust of up to 30 miles an hour. And this is just a confirmation. This is not to show your power over nature, over Mother Nature. No, it's to confirm that it's responding. You became on the frequency of Mother Nature, of the tree. You will see that. It's a confirmation, folks. 30 miles an hour wind is a pretty strong confirmation you've arrived. And then you put your right your hand down, and the wind dissipates. You pull up your hand, you begin to move your hand, and you see the wind. You pull your hand down, and the wind dissipates. You start moving your right hand, and the wind picks up. You put your hand back down, and the wind dies down. That's a confirmation, folks. This is called the agape meditation. Agape is a Greek word it's a biblical term of Greek origin, which means the highest form of divine, perfect love of God, unconditional love of God. This is the frequency of God. This is the language of God. This is the language that God understands. This is the language that God speaks. Nothing else. Sort of like you cannot even, folks, without agape love, there's nothing, you cannot even begin to approach, to even meditate upon God without knowing this concept. This is his realm. So if you come to Rome, you have to speak Italian today. Many thousands of years ago, it was Latin. But today it's Italian. And so, folks, so what I'm sharing with you is classified information, essentially. Classified meaning not in the military sense, but pretty much, folks. And so what I'm sharing with you, folks, are ways to basically get on the frequency of God through this meditative agape meditation practice by doing this daily, by going to a city park, or if you live in the woods, going to the backwoods. It's even better. You as long as you're not surrounded by gadgets or TV sets or news or people driving by or anything that might distract you. Anything besides you and the tree will distract you, and you won't be able to do this meditation. Nothing, absolutely nothing could be on you. No telephone, no computer, no stress, not even no phone. You cannot have your phone on you, folks. I'm just telling you. You bring your phone, forget about it. You won't be able to meditate properly. But if you do it properly, you will see what I just described to you. You will be able to raise your right hand while your left hand is on the tree, placed on a tree, approximately half an hour into this meditative state. and you'll be able to generate a wind gust up to 30 miles an hour. Okay, 20 miles an hour. But you'll see the wind being generated by your right hand. You put it down, the wind will die down instantly. You pull it up and the wind will pick up again. It's like clockwork. And this, you'll like it because it's a confirmation you've arrived, folks. It's not. So then we will teach you how to take it to the next level. You begin to meditating on the frequency of God after that. Once you meditate on the frequency of Mother Nature, the tree. Once you've connected there, we'll show you how to do the rest. And that's where you'll be able to walk on water. Same principle, folks. You start slow in shallow water. You never want to be a hero and just walk out into the middle of a pond. You won't be able to do it at first. But small steps, folks, baby steps. You go in after you do the meditation with a tree, after you see that your right hand is causing the wind. And then with the same belief system, folks, you make small steps in shallow water. Don't be a hero and jump into the lake. It's like, well, you could do it, folks. Remember, Peter walked on water after he saw Jesus, but you have somebody by your side who's standing on water, walking on water. Then you could follow the person because you see the person doing it. So what I'm going to do is, we're going to be doing these sort of what they do at Finhorn Foundation. We're going to do at our Noah's Ark Eco Village. We're going to have these group meditative states where we'll be taking people who've never done this before and we'll help them develop those spiritual skills of walking on water, healing the sick, casting out demons, and raising the dead, just like Jesus had commanded us. Oh, look.
54 seconds. 6,220 steps. Heart rate 106 beats per minute.
No kidding, huh, folks? So it's 106 beats per minute, 6,000 steps. So where was I? We're going to highly recommend the watch, folks. Highly recommend the watch. So today's impromptu message is to bring you a little bit closer into the reality beyond what's written in the Bible, folks, beyond this coded language, beyond what it means to be going to church. Church is, again, a biblical term of Greek origin. So church simply means, it's a Greek word which means an assembly, ekklesia in Greek. And so what you do, folks, you essentially, originally it had a political meaning. It means being called out as an elite group of people because you could do the voting and they could not. The foreigners, the women, and the slaves could not do any of those voting. They didn't have the voting rights. So if you were called out into the ecclesia group, into the assembly, that means you were special. You were deemed as sort of you were an elite group of people. But today, the word church simply means, in a classical context, in a church context, that simply means you are being you're being essentially called out from the crowds, from the masses, from the rest of the population. So you're different. You're on the frequency of God. You're called out from the masses, basically. Even though it doesn't have a nice sound to it, the masses has a negative connotation, but nonetheless, it is what it is. You have to be elevated from the rest if you want to experience the miracles of God. And this channel, this information is for highly devout Christians, Muslims, and other people of faith. So this is for elevated people who are more or less advanced, or who are seeking for this advanced knowledge. This is not for your everyday local yokels who just want to criticize everything. No, this is for people who are searching, who are on the path, very special people who will be invited to our community in Armenia, to our Noah's Ark Eco Village. And we'll be focusing on taking you around. By the way, all the guests, so first of all the guests will be invited from the United States, from Canada, from France, from England, from Australia, from Germany, from Japan, from Korea, from all those countries that, it doesn't make it, from globally, from anywhere. We'll invite people from China, from North Korea, from South Korea, it doesn't make any difference, folks. We don't discriminate. We don't look at peoples as through ethnicity filter or through nationality, through their passports. It doesn't make a difference to me, folks, what your nationality is. The reason why I speak English is because today it's a global language. And so I have to speak English to you, to our audience, because that way I have a chance of reaching a much, much wider audience. You know, pretty much 8 billion people more or less speak it or at least understand it somewhat. So I have a chance of reaching 8 billion people versus, you know, any other language would be a limiting factor. So back to the story, folks, of Jesus. Today he would be speaking this more scientific language. Let's smell this tree, folks. If we don't have any roses to smell, let's smell this tree, folks. What a heavenly aroma, folks. It's incredible, folks. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah, when you smell the roses, don't have roses to smell, you have to smell the trees. And this evergreen, this spruce tree is absolutely, is a lovely aroma, folks. Very, very nice. So anyway, so let's continue our spiritual dialogue, folks. All it is a dialogue. I'm connected to the frequency of God. I'm recording my voice and putting up on the screen nice pictures of Armenia, Mount Ararat, Noah's Ark, and the place where he pitched his tent, to paint you a picture. The reason why we called it Holy Land Tours is because we invite people from around the world to visit Holy Land, the original Holy Land, which is Armenia. How so, you might say? Well, folks, we have Noah, that we call Papa Noah in Armenia, because we are all descendants of Noah, obviously. He pitched his tent in the Ararat Valley by the Arax River, or Araxes River, and by the village of Arax, and this is where we are, folks. You'll see the Ararat Valley. We'll take you to the Arax River so you can see it, and we'll take you up Mount Ararat if you'd like to see it, or you could just look at the Mount Ararat from a distance if you wish. But for those daredevils who like to climb the mountain, we'll take you up the mountain if you're capable of actually getting there. So, but we'll have to know in advance about your plans, because if you want to climb Mount Ararat, there's quite a few things that we have to do before we do that. So a few permissions we have to get. It's a very, very sort of like it's a well, it's not, it's a special zone, folks. We have to get some permissions, we have to get some, you know, expedition gear and guides, and we have to have some horses and donkeys that will climb up to 3,000 meters and then they stop. See, the horses and the donkeys, they're oxygen deprived. They cannot go above the 3,000, maybe 3,200 meters elevation. They stop and they begin to fall down and they become disoriented. Now, human beings can go up all the way to 5,000 meters. If you're in a healthy condition, you can do that. But we'll have, just in case, some oxygen tanks for you. And now the only problem is, folks, you have to realize it's rather risky, because if you're willing to climb it, you have to know what you're doing. You know, because it might snow, it might rain, it might suddenly, like, go from, you know, pleasant sunny day to suddenly negative 40 degrees weather. That's what Celsius means, Fahrenheit, and wind gusts up to 120 miles an hour, and lightning bolts and this and that. It's just horrible weather, and then it just changes again, and on and on and on. It's constantly changing. So it's not that sort of it's a very, very finicky mountain with the weather. It's you never know. It changes on the dime, literally. It changes on the dime, and you don't know what to expect. But on lucky sort of a July days, yeah, when it's sunny, you can see it's sunny for hours and hours and hours. We have to just get there 3 days before, because everything has to be scheduled. Everything has to be kind of timed. We do make those base camps to allow your body to acclimate to the elevation at, you know, specific distances. And then if we're lucky, we'll be able to see Mount Ararat, because it's actually embedded into the slope of a mountain where the Aqoṛi Gorge kind of, I'll point to the mountain so you can see it on your screen, where it's actually where the Aqoṛi Gorge begins. and it's embedded into the slope of the mountain, and then you can actually see it if the glaciers will recede enough in July. You see there's a bunch of, basically there's a lake on top, a small lake, not a big lake, but just above the lake you'll see there's a little crevasse. It's a little, how should I put it, it's like a little cave, if you will, but if we're lucky, we'll see the glacier basically receding. We'll see we'll see Noah's Ark protruding from the mountain, and you'll see it's unfortunately being destroyed right now by the global warming. I mean, something's causing the glaciers to melt, unlike 100 years ago. Everything is melting, folks, unfortunately. It shouldn't, but it does. And it's actually getting into the Ark was, up until just about 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, about 50 years ago, it was embedded into a sub-freezing, sub-zero temperature ice, permafrost kind of a environment of the glacier. Now the glacier started to move and kind of break away pieces of Noah's Ark, and it's melting. There's water that's flowing. There's a lake, a small lake, but it's a lake. You can swim in it if you want, at that sort of a 4,500 meter elevation. So it's really like a different planet. Plus it's very dangerous, because in order to get to that spot from above, if we go from the top, we would have to be stepping over those glacial ice-covered little paths, which we don't know how thick they are, if we're going to fall through them. And so anyway, it's a really very, very, very tricky situation. I'm just sharing with you what it's like if you want to see the Ark, or if you want to just see the mountain from a distance. And so if you're not capable, if you're not in good health, if you don't know if you can survive, if you won't be oxygen deprived at such altitude, then you're better off just looking at it from a distance. Very beautiful mountain. But if you really want to climb it, you just let us know. We'll take you up. We'll climb it together so you can see it. We'll come as close to it as possible, to the Ark as possible, at a safe distance. So in other words, we're not going to push you into the into the abyss. If you want to see it, go the same. No. We're all going to be roped up. There's lots of safety, and then if we all, if you slid down, you're going to be hanging on a special cable, basically, safety cable. So there's safety net, etc., etc., etc. So anyway, folks, so this is our kind of a introduction to Holy Land Tours, where we want to welcome all of the spiritual seekers, Christians, Muslims, people of other faiths, to come to Armenia. Those are the devout Christians, first of all. These are the people who are constantly, they're beyond this sort of a superficial biblical living, especially in the West, where everybody's, bamboozled by the demons to believe nonsense, and they never grow spiritually. They are developmentally arrested at the age of 5, I would say, even maybe 4. But if you want to grow further, if you want to elevate your spirit, if you want to know the Bible, if you want to know the Quran, if you want to be able to learn how to walk on water, how to heal the sick, how to cast out demons, how to raise the dead, well, that's where you need to be, in Armenia with us. And we'll teach you all these Bible mysteries. And remember, Peter walked after Jesus. When Peter was sitting in his boat, and he saw Jesus walking on water, and he said, "Lord, if it is you, allow me to follow you." And Jesus said, "Come." And Peter walked, and then he became afraid, folks. You see, it's human nature, this defective DNA, folks. Defective DNA to the core. I mean, you see a person walking on water, you respect this person. I mean, he didn't think Jesus was some freak. He didn't think Jesus was some schizophrenic. He didn't think that Jesus was some maniac. No, Jesus was a respectable figure in his community. So Peter shouldn't have any doubts, but he did, folks. He was the most daring character of the 12, usually with a bushy beard and sort of a spirit of thunder. But he saw Jesus walking. Why would you want to doubt? What is it? He was walking on the water. He suddenly realized, folks, this is human nature. He realized human beings are not supposed to walk on water. As he began to drown, like folks, he was a fisherman. Like he was connected with water in some way. And he began to cry like a little baby. Help me, I'm drowning, folks. He's a fisherman. But because he was under these circumstances, folks, he was walking on the water. What does it mean, folks? You see, human beings are not supposed to be walking on water. No way. So his entire, what we call today modern word, paradigm began to shift. He became afraid of his own eyes, what his eyes projected into his retina and into his hippocampus, into his prefrontal cortex. So his brain began to see images that he's actually like walking on the water, folks. Like he was walking on the water. It's like, how could this be, folks? Well, Jesus is walking. He's fine. Straight spinal cord. No fear at all. And then Peter, the man of thunder, the strong man with a bushy black beard, who had a very limited vocabulary, but nonetheless, he said, I'm drowning. Lord, help me. And Jesus, of course, he smiled that he came up to him and pulled him up by his hand and pulled him up into the boat, of course, folks, because at that point, when you are drowning in the water, folks, it must be the worst kind of fear. And this is why we will never teach you how to, once you begin how to elevate yourself off the ground, folks, you just go 5 to 10 centimeters. Okay, whatever, inches, doesn't make any difference. 5 to 10 inches or centimeters. You just slightly above ground and you stay elevated, and then you come down. And if something happens, you just flop down like a little kitten. But you safely flop down. You're not going to break your legs, folks. 5 centimeters, that's nothing. But you will be, this is the agape meditation, folks. You'll be able to elevate, levitate, float, and then you come down or flop down. Most people flop down. They experience this sort of a Peter's reflex. Peter, the guy who couldn't walk on water, he got scared and began to drown. Yeah, once you begin to levitate off the ground, you get very, very scared, and then you plop down like a little kitten on the ground. Safely, folks, safely. The key is not to go up, but to stay just slightly above ground. This is what many, 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 many yogis do. And by the way, folks, this is not even my forte. This is not my cup of tea. This is not my focus. This is not my thing. It's just one of the exercises we do and then we forget about it. This is not what we practice every single day, folks. What we practice every single day is the frequency of God, because that's our ultimate goal. All of those other things are just, as Jesus said, they'll be added on to you. We must focus on the frequency of God, or what Jesus called on the kingdom of heaven, because they didn't know what frequency was, folks. They didn't have electricity back then. They didn't have email. They didn't know what dark flow is. Dark flow, remember, is that powerful force that accelerates our Milky Way galaxy to 600 kilometers per second speed. They didn't know what a galaxy was back then, folks. That's why he used this silly language of, kingdom of God. Folks, it's the frequency of God. That's the proper language today, because we're much more advanced today than 2,000 years ago, thank God. And so he would be speaking this very same language today to you right now, if he was with us. But he's speaking through me, through the Spirit of God, through his inspiration, and that's why I'm simply sharing with you what the Spirit kind of shares with me. How nice is it, huh? I'm just GoPro walking, enjoying the beautiful fresh air, and this is how it works, folks. This is why I'm so happy that we have this freedom and technology to share it and use the technology for good. And that's the only way to do it. So back to our story, and I'm going to wrap up. We are meant to walk on water, if that's your goal. We are meant to get just a minimal amount of kindness and wisdom from God, because kindness is a sister of love that leads to God, because God is love. Love is a higher frequency. That's the noetic light. Noetic light is the uncreated light. Uncreated light is the light that is the brightest thing in the universe that shines, but we cannot see it. Our physical eyes cannot see it, folks. It's everywhere. This is what the astrophysicists have recently discovered. It's called the dark matter because it cannot be seen. This light is what pulls everything together. This light is the glue that holds everything together in the universe. The mass of our universe, folks, the physical universe that we see, the stars, the planets, the nebulae, the comets, the galaxies, that's only 4%, folks. The other 94%, nobody knows what it is. It's an invisible force. That is the noetic light. This is the force, that particles, the field, that something that belongs to God. We cannot see it. It's just, no instrument could measure it, folks. But that's what permeates our ether. Ether is the first element of the periodic table that was proposed by Dmitry Mendeleev, who was just a phenomenally gifted man, who was, by the way, on the frequency of God. Because in order to be able to, my goodness, to come up with a ether as the first element in the universe, which, by the way, was later removed by people who wanted to make money off of the something more practical. They wanted to have gold and silver, but not ether. Ether is like free and it's for everyone. They didn't like it. So, yeah, Dmitry Mendeleev, he put it in his table as the number one element, not hydrogen, but ether. So, folks, ether is what holds everything in place. This is what this glue. This is God's frequency, God's light, noetic light, and everything that we know in the universe that we cannot see. That is ether. That is God's frequency, folks, for the lack of a better word. And so in order for us to comprehend it, this is my purpose in life. We just meditate. And by meditating and praying, by prayer meditation every morning, remember I shared with you how you do it with a glass of water, you get on that sort of agape meditation. And then you begin to discover new hidden, if you will, resources about yourself. And these are the resources that we must not necessarily be overly focused on, but these are the resources that we must be at least exploring. Because unexplored life, folks, unexplored life is not worth living. So while I'm walking, I'm sharing with you, I'm getting the fresh air, I'm sharing with you some of the thoughts that I'm able to pick up from the frequency of God, because I'm on this lifestyle. And I'm sharing with you for free, folks, free of charge, with those who are seeking higher wisdom from God, higher power. If you want to elevate, pull your head out of the gutter, from everyday mundane lifestyle. This is the channel. This is the message. This is why we invite all the people from around the world to come visit Armenia, to check out our Noah's Ark eco-village plans. And that's why I'm telling you, folks, we have people from all over the world who are interested. And that's why I'm keeping it in English only, of course, obviously, for people to understand what I'm saying. This message is global, folks. It's global. And we're going to teach you a few Greek words, Armenian words, and Russian words, and French words, Arabic words, and Sumerian words, Akkadian words. All those words are important. That's for your general education, folks, general education. For example, Armenian is a very ancient language. Its alphabet was created 1600 years ago in 405 Anno Domini by a famous Armenian linguist, a poet and a philosopher and polymath. His name was Mesrop Bashtats. And he created this very symmetrical alphabet with symmetrical letters he got some ideas from the Greeks. It's based on the Greek alphabet, somewhat, not all of it, but somewhat. And there are some clear similarities. And prior to the 1600-year-old alphabet that he created in 405, the Armenians used other means of communicating and storing their information. So the Armenians used a cuneiform writing system that they have been using while cooperating with in conjunction with ancient Persia. So it was the cuneiform writing system found in Persia. Ancient Persia, folks, not today's Persia. It's a totally different system. What they have today is not the same. Not the same. That's not Farsi. It's ancient Persian. It's completely different language, folks. So, prior to that, Armenians have used the Assyrian writing system. Then, prior to that, folks, because Armenia is located in the well, today is the territory of the Republic of Armenia is much smaller than the Kingdom of Armenia. Armenia is the ancient name of Armenia, and prior to that is Kingdom of Urartu, and then there was also known the Kingdom of Van. It's kind of the same thing. Van, Urartu is just the, it's like there's all kinds of different names Armenia used to have, and most importantly, folks, it used to be next to Akkad. Well, I mean, just north of Akkad, not next to, but just in the vicinity of Akkad. Akkad was next to Sumer, okay? So Akkad, Sumer, that's the Sumerian and Akkadian culture. So the first known writing system as we know it today was the Sumerian writing system, the cuneiform that they would basically use the sticks and write them up. I'm going to pull up on the screen so you can see it. Write them up on wet clay, and then they would bake the clay tablets, and then here you go. Here's your writing system. So that was approximately 6,000 years ago, and they keep discovering, folks, right now, for example, in Armenia, they discovered a 12,000-year-old settlement near the capital city of Yerevan, where they were building a science hall or a science center, and they discovered a 12,000-year-old settlement. I'm going to put it up on the screen. You'll see Dr. Jacob Simonyan was called in by the architect of that site. Her name is Tatev, and she called him up and says, Dr. Simonyan, we have this fortress here, and it looks like an ancient fortress. You better come down here and check it out before we bulldoze it. He said, don't even dare. If it's a fortress, stay out of it. I'm on my way. So he came out. He asked him where it's at, and he came out. He carbon dated it to 12,000 years old, folks. This is before the flood, the Great Flood. This is before Noah. This is before the woolly mammoth, folks. In fact, they had the scrapers, folks, that I'm going to pull up on the screen. They used those scrapers made out of obsidian stone, which is lava stone, very sharp, to treat the hides or the skins of woolly mammoths. So 12,000 years old, folks, there were woolly mammoths walking all over that part of the world. I mean, around the planet, there were woolly mammoths at that time. So anyway, so that's 12,000-year-old settlement in Armenia. Now, they just found, folks, they just recently found, I'm going to pull it up on the screen, a 68,000-year-old painting inside a cave on Muna Island. You'll see it in Indonesia, folks. 68. So my point is they constantly find something older and much older and much older. Folks, 68,000-year-old painting. That's right, folks. They had it was carbon dated to 68,000 years ago. So this is the world's oldest human painting, painted by some early Leonardo da Vinci, a human painter that lived inside a cave on an Indonesian island of Muna, M-U-N-A, folks. So look it up if you don't believe me. I mean, this was just recently discovered. So they used to believe, like somewhere in France, they found this 35,000-year-old cave painting, and then there was a 40,000. Everybody debated, because how is it possible, 40,000 years? And now, folks, it beat all previous records. Folks, can you just for 1 second picture this, 68,000 years ago? And this is not the limit, folks. I'm sure they'll find something even more ancient. But you see it's a hand stencil of a man who blew some organic dust from the ground, which was rich in iron. That's why it's painted red. If you see red, that's what it is. It's ochre. That's the name of the substance. O-C-H-E-R. That's the American spelling. O-C-R-E, I believe. That's the British spelling. It's kind of like theater and theater. The American spelling versus the British spelling. Center versus center. It's like British versus American. It's called the ochre, basically. It's a powder comes from organic mass from the ground. It's rich in iron. That's why it's red. That's why it looks red, and that's why it doesn't wash out, folks. He blew on it, and he just permanently. It got permanently it got stuck on the wall, on the cave wall, folks. 68,000 years old. My point is that we constantly learn of these new discoveries, and they get older and older and older. And right now, I'm telling you, so just recently, a 12,000-year-old oldest settlement in the world was found in Armenia. But just more recently, a 68,000-year-old painting found on some Indonesian island of Muna that is much, much older than the Armenian settlement. So you see, folks, they keep finding those things. So don't be sort of limited thinking, it's 6,000 years old and that's it, folks. I mean, like what some people, the Bible thumpers, they say it's 6,000 years. The earth is 6,000 years old. Are you kidding me? I mean, you gotta be kidding me, folks. You just like people with half a brain realize it's not 6,000 years old, folks. If the guy painted his hand 68,000 years ago, I mean, how could it be 6,000 years old? I mean, you've got to use your brain, folks, just for once in your life. Don't say those stupid things, please. If you're going to repeat after some Bible thumper that says, Jesus spilled his blood, do you believe in that? You don't even understand what he's saying, and you just want to repeat it. Don't repeat it unless you get it, folks. Unless you understand what the hell he's saying. Don't say it, please. Don't repeat it just for the hell of it. Don't say it. Don't say those things, the fundamentalists are saying all over the place, Did you accept Jesus, or did you, something like about Jesus, like they walk around and they say, what is that phrase that they use, folks? Have you been redeemed by the blood of Jesus? That's it, folks. Have you been redeemed by the blood of Jesus, brother? Yeah, I have been. What does it mean? Nobody knows, folks. No, they don't understand what that means. It goes into the ancient Hebrew ritual of killing those. They have all kinds of rituals of killing those animals, poor animals, folks. And that temple, folks, it's a very, 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 very angry god that they worship. His name is Yahweh. That's how you pronounce it. Yahweh. That's how you pronounce it, folks. That's the name of their god. It's one out of 10,000 gods, folks. So in the ancient times, there were thousands upon thousands of gods. You get to pick which one you like. So if you don't like Yahweh, you pick Marduk. If you don't like Marduk, you pick Baal. If you don't like Baal, there's thousands of other gods, folks. And everybody had their own god, folks. So, but angry God, most angriest god of them all was Yahweh. He was the god of war and murder. That's right, folks. Just study this, folks. Study this. Yahweh is a one of many, many, many thousands of gods, just like Marduk, just like Baal, and many other gods of that region in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is a Greek term. It simply means between two rivers. Mesopotamia. So between the rivers of Tigris and Euphrates. And this is precisely north of that is where Armenia is. But in the center of it is where the city of Akkad and Sumer were. Sumerian civilization and the Akkadian civilization. So these were the first civilizations that gave us everything we know. So the Sumerian civilization gave us astronomy. They gave us the wheel. They invented the wheel, folks. They invented mathematics. They invented the first writing system. They invented the accounting system. They invented the everything we use today. They invented approximately 6,000 years ago. But they were not the first ones, unfortunately. The Ubaidian civilization, folks, the Ubaidians, they were the preceding civilization, folks. Unfortunately, we don't know anything about the Ubaidians. And we know very little about the Sumerians. We only know they had these huge eyes that were just sort of wide open. That's how they portrayed themselves on all of the statues when we have found, discovered, explored today. I mean, today, we discovered them about 120 years ago, folks. So prior to 120 years ago, we didn't know even about the Sumerians. We didn't know, folks. We didn't know. Today we do. So it's a 6,000-year-old civilization. They give us everything. But they stem from another, a more ancient civilization of so-called Ubadians, and we don't know anything about them. We just know they were even much more advanced, much more technically inclined, much more superior civilization. So the Sumerians learned from the Ubadians. The Ubadians, we don't know. This is where the sort of the traditional classic, archaeology doesn't have much to say. But that's about 7,000-8,000 years ago. This is where the Armenian observatory that was found, it's called the Karahunj. That's the 7,500-year-old observatory. This is precisely the time when this Ubadian civilization was around, which we don't know anything about, folks. They did have a writing system. It was sort of like runic. Runic is not quite, it's not quite cuneiform, but it had these symbols. And folks, this is I'm going to share with you another mystery. So we've been robbed. Today we have remnants, just lousy remnants of, when we have our alphabets, like in English, in Latin, in Armenian, and Greek, in Russian, in French, in German, and notice I didn't mention Japanese. They have 10,000 characters. I didn't mention Chinese, folks. They have thousands of characters they have to memorize. No. I'm talking about the Western European kind of Indo-European languages, folks. We've been robbed because many thousands of years ago, folks, they didn't use. This is very important for you to get if there's anything. So today we are shortchanged because the modern alphabets have been stripped down to its individual letters for simplicity's sake. So thousands of years ago, folks, they had a different writing system. I'm talking about not the cuneiform, another writing system. The runes were basically projecting entire notions, folks. So each rune was like a story, and a collection of those runes projected a much deeper message than what we have today. Example, for those of you who studied the Slavic languages, there is the gлаголитhic alphabet. По-русски это будет глаголец. Азбуки веди глаголь, добро, etc. So those letters, folks, if you studied the Glagolithic Russian, a pre-Russian, this is Proto-Russian writing system alphabet. So Peter the Great removed something like 13 letters. And it became what today is the Russian alphabet, 36, 39 letters, something like that, 32, 36 letters, something like that, approximately. The point was there were more letters. What Lunacharsky created in 1918 reform of the Russian language, unfortunately after the 1917 October Bolshevik Revolution, they stripped down some letters, and by removing those letters, now the Russian people don't know how to say the world versus peace. In English, peace is the absence of war. In Russian, it's the word mir, M-I, just 3 letters, mir. Just like the space station, remember the Soviet space station called Mir? And so is cosmos of the world. In Russian, it's mir, spelled the same way, after the 1918 reform. This is very important, folks, because of Lunacharsky reform. He did it. He removed some letters, he removed some important letters, and now the Russians are confused. They don't know how to say peace or the world. It's the same spelling, and they don't know. Like many Russians don't know. If you ask them, what does it mean? Does the space station Mir, does it mean peace? The absence of war doesn't mean cosmos, and they don't know. Nobody knows, folks, unless you talk to the author of that program. He is the only person who named it who could tell us what he meant. It's because of the limitation of the alphabet. I'm telling you the secrets here, folks, linguistic secrets. Very few people know this. This is advanced level. But before the 1917 revolution, folks, before the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, before the Lunacharsky reform, the Russian language had many more letters and many more special signs that would make a distinction. So before the 1917 October Revolution, any Russian person could write peace or the world very easily using different characters. See, they removed those characters. You see, and by removing those characters, now the Russian people are left without expressing their thoughts more fully. They don't know how to say mir, meaning peace, or mir, meaning the world, folks. But prior to 1917, they could do that. but not after the 1918 reform of Lunacharsky, who's a bastard really, to do that. They claimed they wanted to simplify the language because the masses, the working class, the silly people didn't know how to spell. You've got to be kidding me. And now what they did is, folks, it's a tragic thing. My point is, today's alphabets, using this Russian language example of mir and mir, they bastardized the language, they simplified the language. Lunacharsky did this. They wanted to simplify it for the common people, for the working class. I mean, for people who didn't have much education, or people who didn't have much knowledge, make it easier for them to grasp the system. But by doing that, folks, imagine today, most people, 300 million Russian speakers around the world, they don't know this. I'm even sharing with you, folks. This is a secret I'm sharing with you. They don't even know this, but they cannot express the word peace or the world properly. They only have one word spelled the same way, pronounced the same way. And when they say mir, the Russians say mir, they don't know what they're saying to each other. They have to guess. They have to guess. Этот человек, он сказал, мир имеется в виду мир в мире, то есть отсутствие войны. Или же этот человек имеет в виду мир как вселенная, как космос, понимаете? То есть физический мир. Мир физический, либо мир как отсутствие войны. То есть they don't know, they don't understand what they're saying, folks. It's a tragedy. And it happened to all other languages as well. I'm only using this one recent example that happened after the October Revolution of 1917, Anno Domini. And by the way, the reason I always say Anno Domini is because as a Christian, folks, we should stand our ground. Because the secular people keep replacing Anno Domini, which means in the year of our Lord, with CE. And when they put CE, which means common era, they're replacing the biblical Christian Christ language from their writing. And the reason I keep saying Anno Domini, I want to emphasize that we should not be afraid of that. And I suggest you do the same if you're a Christian. Because otherwise all the secular people will be writing BCE, which means before common era, or what we would say as Christians, before Christ. So don't be afraid of that, folks. Say before Christ, say Anno Domini. Don't worry about it. You're not going to break your tongue. You're just projecting to the world your belief system as soon as you say that. You have to say Anno Domini if you speak English. So anyway, folks, so this is where we are. The Russian language was bastardized in 1918 after the reform, after the October Revolution of 1917. It happened to many other languages, and prior to this process of simplification, folks, see, like even the glagolithic, Proto-Russian glagolitsa, азбуки вери глаголь добро, it had a meaning attached to every little character. And it was much, much, much deeper meaning than just А, Б, В, Г, Д, Ё, Ж, З, К, Л, М, Н, О, П, Р, С, Т. Понимаете, о чем я говорю? То есть, so it's not just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. No. It had a meaning. So A had a sacred meaning. It was sacred, folks. Our language is a sacred tool of communication. Most people don't know how to handle it, how to manage it. It's a shame. Most people use any language, English or Russian or French or German, only 0.00001% of it. They don't know, folks. They don't know. They barely know how to use it. Barely. And our goal is to elevate our minds, get into meditative state, and learn. I'm sharing this knowledge with you so you will understand that before these reforms, languages were much deeper, much more sacred, and you can actually do those things effortlessly. Like if you say, when Jesus said, go to this mountain, and the mountain obeys, folks, it's because he meant when you're on this frequency, when you understand that your language has the power of God built into it. If you're on that ancient, meditative, runic mentality or frequency, really is the best word, folks. So when Jesus said move, or he said to the fig tree, let no fruit ever be found on you, and it withered away so quickly. Folks, how did it wither away so quickly? It's because Jesus is on a different frequency. And he used the language, remember, 250 Aramaic words in a different way, folks. He put all of the ancient, sacred, hidden knowledge attaching to every sound, to every... Folks, this is divine. What we're doing right now, we're communicating. This is divine. We just don't know it. So the Russian language, again, 1917, October Revolution, they decided to simplify it for the simple people. And they bastardize it to the degree that most Russian people today don't even know how to say the world or peace. So that space station folks, Mir, nobody knows. Nobody knows. I ask many people, I ask through every encyclopedia, no, we don't know if the author of that phrase meant peace, the absence of war, or if he meant the world. And some people say it's both. I mean, how would we know? I mean, come on now, don't say this is both. We don't know unless he said so, the author, the person who named it so. Because after 1917, folks, you see, I might even pull it up on the screen. You see, prior to 1917, you used a different letter. And that different letter meant peace. And after October 17, they removed the letter so it's spelled the same way. So there is no way to distinguish which meaning was attached to that word. Mir meaning peace, or the word. It's really something. And that is an example of how most modern languages today are limited in their expressive connection to the sacred. Where in the past, when the runic writing system was used, folks. So let me give you an example. So my point is, I will end with the glagolithic. So the modern Russian alphabet, 36 words or something like that, letters, I mean. Prior to that was glagolithic, was 41. Peter the Great removed 13 of them or something like that. He removed a whole bunch of letters. But prior to that, folks, the ancient Russian runic system had 12,000 characters, folks, just like the Chinese and the Japanese, folks. 12,000 characters, because every single character, it wasn't a letter, folks, it was like a story. So you had to go through it, and it was very deep and sacred. So when you wrote A in runic alphabet, folks, in runic writing, it's not an alphabet, it's a writing system. You were operating in the realm of the divine realm of sort of like the impossible. You could actually change history with it. You could actually change reality, physical reality with it. You could actually, if you wanted to, make people feel better just by writing a certain message to them. You see, it's very complicated, very complex, and very few people even know about it. But we're going to delve into it, the runic system. Really was popular in Scandinavian countries, in some of the Slavic cultures, and again, prior to the glagolithic Proto-Russian writing system, there were Russian runes that were sort of like tied to the Vedic tradition. So you see there is an enormously close tie between the Russian, the Slavic, and the Vedic tradition, because the Vedic culture, folks, it goes back 430,000 years ago. Again, remember, we just discovered 68,000 years ago.
1 hour, 44 minutes,
check this out.
26 seconds. 10,408 steps. Heart rate 118 beats per minute.
Okay, folks, so anyway, so we're going to wrap up our podcast. Been walking for 1 hour and 44 minutes. I will just wrap it up by saying, the runes express the thoughts on a deeper level. It's sacred. It's beyond just sort of like A, B, C, D, F, G. With the example of the 1917, 1918 reform I just gave you. So we're going to study that. It's divine, it's sacred. Sounds are divine. Om is the sound of creation in all Vedic writing, in all Vedic sacred knowledge. Om, the sound of creation, folks. All of our sounds that we make essentially are ancient representations of divine communication. The primordial original language of what you might say, using biblical terminology, Adam and Eve spoke, if you will. So they said something and it materialized. Jesus said to the mountain, move, and it moved. He told the fig tree, wither away, and it withered away. And by the way, there was Simon the tanner. in the city of Cairo. I'm going to pull it up on the screen, the story how he, through prayer and meditation, he was able to move Mount Makatam in Egypt, folks. And it's been recorded. There were some people who were able to connect to that frequency and even move the mountain. It ripped from its foundation, etc., 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 and moved to the side, the entire mountain, folks. So anyway, on this note, I'd like to conclude our wonderful podcast. We invite you over to our future podcast where knowledge and sacred knowledge and pure thoughts are shared. The thoughts of God are being shared on our channel. We invite you to Armenia, the first Christian nation, the mountainous country surrounded by mountains and wonderful, wonderful people, the descendants of holy Noah, and where you will learn things that you will never learn anywhere else, because simply of Armenia's geography, because of how we are connected to all the countless portals that we have in Armenia. Remember Jacob's ladder, that portal that he sort of climbed up, folks? Well, that portal was, it's all over the places in Armenia. We're going to take you to this portal so you could see it. And if you want to see them on YouTube, you know, Bob Bigelow invested $125 million into Skinwalker Ranch in the U.S. state of Utah to do some scientific investigation. They also captured on 4K resolution cameras, very, very scientific equipment, special scientific equipment. Look up Skinwalker Ranch. It's a little bit on the negative side, but basically they were able to capture the portals opening up inside the Skinwalker Ranch, and they're all over the world. I mean, they're everywhere. That's why people are able to travel in time, disappear, and then reappear. They're all over the place, folks. Skinwalker Ranch, Utah. Bob Bigelow spent millions of dollars on investigating this, and there are 12 scientists living there full time, sort of studying that phenomenon. But anyway, it's all over Armenia. The portals are open, they close and open, and if you get caught in them, you get pulled into the sort of the multi-dimensional wormholes, and they connect different times, different dimensions, different universes, different galaxies. It's a technology that's much more advanced than our human technology. That's why we do not understand it. But anyway, study it, learn it, look it up. We're going to share with you what we know in Armenia. When you come to Armenia, we want to welcome you to Armenia. God bless you. Take care. We want to basically see you in Armenia, where we'll share with our agape love, the highest divine, unconditional love of God. Take care. God bless you. Write to us. You see the number on the screen. You see our email address on the screen. You see how to reach us. So take care. God bless you, and we'll see you at the very top. And always look out, folks. I hope you can see the stars up above. They're absolutely magnificent today. Take care.